Hey, Upper East Siders. Welcome to our podcast where we dive deep into the scandalous and luxurious world of Gossip Girl. Whether you're a longtime fan or a newbie to the Upper East Side, we'll have all the juicy details, secrets, and gossip you crave. From the unforgettable fashion statements to the steamy romances and backstabbing friendships, we'll be your guide through the drama-filled lives of our favorite characters. And we'll also take a look at how the show impacted pop culture and influenced the fashion industry. So sit back, grab a Cosmo, and get ready to indulge in all the gossip and drama the Upper East Side has to offer. Because you know you love us. XOXO. Gossip Girl. And that was written by ChatGPT to open our show, everybody. Give her a round of applause. I think that's an AI slay, to be honest.
What was the prompt you gave? That was so detailed.
I said, write an intro to our podcast about Gossip Girl. Like it's an introduction to a Gossip Girl episode. Start with Upper East Siders and end with XOXO Gossip Girl. And
wow, women in STEM.
Women in STEM. ChatGPT, unofficial co-writer of We'll Throw the After Party. I am so excited for tonight's takeover, which is Alexis's takeover. One of our first bonding points, Alexis, was Gossip Girl, and I kind of thrust this one upon you, but I'm really excited to see you lead us through some Gossip Girl conversation. I'm Liz. This is Marissa, Alexis, and Sly. Y'all know us as your favorite friends who break down pop culture every Saturday night. This week is all about Gossip Girl, and 3 of the 4 of us on screen had a previous understanding of Gossip Girl, deep religious experiences. Maybe at least 2 of us did, watching Gossip Girl before this week's episode. And tonight I'm so thrilled to get to bring Marissa under the umbrella of the Gossip Girl world. So Marissa, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah.
How was your week? How are you feeling about tonight's episode? I know this was a big experience for you watching this for the first time.
Yeah, my week was great. It was very busy. You were there for a lot of it, Liz. But I'm feeling good. Everyone that I have talked to or that has seen that we're doing this tonight was shocked that I had never seen Gossip Girl before. And I'm thrilled to be here and dive in to the Upper East Side.
Dive into the Upper East Side. And we've been live quite a bit this week, you and I want to let everyone know that's waiting for the replays. We had almost 7 hours of footage from watching the Oscars that I'm still trying to edit my way through. I have it down to 3 hours right now. So 50% of the work is done. We'll have it up by the end of the weekend. And then we also have our live replay reacting to the new Taylor Swift songs, which I don't know how to post without getting a copyright violation. So still trying to figure that one out. But when we figure it out, we will post it on Instagram so everyone can replay those shows. Sly, you have an interesting relationship with Gossip Girl as well. You've watched this show. And you have said many times that you don't remember most of what you watched. So tell me, what was it like watching it back this week? And how was your week?
My week was something. It's dead week, so I'm here barely. But yeah, no, it was interesting to rewatch the show that I've only seen in a very specific mindset and do not remember any of it. So I'm here.
I love refreshing with a show that you haven't seen in a long time. I love that kind of rewatching experience. And Gossip Girl is one of the ones that I have watched the show through an ungodly number of times. And the amount of detail I will never, ever remember about this show. And I watch it back and I'm like, oh my God, that happened? It's unbelievable how much they jam in. Alexis, how are you feeling about tonight's Gossip Girl takeover as someone that lives and breathes Gossip Girl maybe almost as much as I do, as someone that we've bonded quite a bit over our Serena Blair ness. I've gone with the Serena swoop this evening, the deep side part, and you've gone with the Blair necklace sweater combo. So we're really living up to it.
Yeah, it was interesting to rewatch. I think I have different opinions about it now than I maybe did the first time through, but it is undeniably a show that influenced my life in some pretty interesting ways. So it was nice to revisit that. And well, I guess I can say this. Sly and I actually watched most of it for tonight's episode together, which was a wonderful experience where I just ranted stuff and Sly wrote it down.
Beautiful. That's on teamwork. I'm obsessed. I love it. And I want to say hi to everybody watching. I love, we have Hannah here who was with us on Sunday during the Oscars live chat. Welcome to the weekly Saturday show. We have a little bit of Oscars throughout this episode. I know Marissa's got a section of the show where you're talking about what's happened since the Oscars. A lot going on. And I want to shout out Sylvan and JG who wrote their own Gossip Girl inspired intros to this episode in the comments. And I would say they definitely are better than what ChatGPT wrote. And I wish I'd read your comments instead of that whole spiel, but shout out to both of you and to Bucky and everybody else that's with us this week. Thank you so much for tuning in and spending your Saturday with us. And hey, to all the replayers watching back, you know we love you. XOXO. Let's talk a little bit about what we've been enjoying this week. I want to start with the Oscars, and I think I might piggyback a little bit off of what Marissa has in store here. But this week, my whole life was the Oscars, and then the fallout of the Oscars, and just in information overload. I haven't even been able to post a video because things are just evolving that quickly. But Sarah Polley won an Oscar, and that was like the highlight of my life, that Sarah Polley won an Oscar. We had the Everything Everywhere All at Once sweep, which was like exhilarating to watch. We had 300 of you watching live with us, which was so fun. And then like Taylor Swift decided to drop 4 songs, including one of my all-time favorite Taylor Swift songs, and that one as well as you could possibly expect. And we also did that live. And then finally we had the Eras Tour last night. And we're going to talk about that during Rants of the Week, because I truly am still recovering from that experience. So I've been enjoying a lot this week. It's been a big week of enjoyment for Liz. And Marissa, you, as you said, were with me through a lot of that. So tell everyone what you've been enjoying this week.
I kind of like smushed my enjoyings from the last 2 weeks, because I was with Liz basically all week, or watching Gossip Girl. So this week I enjoyed Gossip Girl and the Oscars with Liz, and shout out to Ted Lasso is back, which was this past week, right? Yeah, this Wednesday.
I think it was this week.
Yeah,
it's been a long week.
There's
been a lot. There's been a lot happening this week.
Yeah. So that was this week, and last week I was catching up on Oscars nominees before the show. So I watched, what did I watch? I watched Banshees of Inisherin, Tar, Women Talking. That might have been it. And a lot of press and in conversations with the Daniels and the cast of Everything Everywhere, which was really enjoyable to watch them sweep. So that's me.
If Marissa's going to do one thing, it's her homework. If Marissa's going to do one thing, it's know everything she possibly can before the assignments due. It's beautiful to watch. Sly, what have you been enjoying this week?
I did enjoy watching along with you all at the Oscars. I did not enjoy that the Oscars did spark the beginning of my personal beef with Brian Tyree Henry, which, if you didn't see on his carpet interviews, he walked with an interpreter, which was great, but he did refer to deaf and hard of hearing folks as hearing impaired. And I just don't understand how a person who has worked with the incomparable Lauren Ridloff could consider her impaired in any way. So that really brought down the enjoyment a little bit around him. But I did check out the new Taylor Swift that dropped while JJ and I were live on Thirsty Thursday. We hopped in with Liz and Marissa, and that was a fun experience. And then yesterday, as I was reading one of the like bajillion academic articles I am referencing in this paper I'm trying to write, I made a Supernatural reference because I was reading this an intro to a book called The Problem Body, and one of the essays in this book is like breaking down the one-act play Witch, and I was like, you know where I know that one-act play from? It was in a Supernatural fanfic I read.
What?
Yeah, you're muted, my love.
I said that was my reaction, Marissa.
Yeah. It's JJ's fault. Listen, I don't remember exactly which fanfic it is, but I'm pretty sure it's the really good one. JJ will remember the name of it, I'm sure. But there's a supernatural fanfic where he writes poetry or whatever, and it's this whole thing. But yeah, so that gave me a little giggle as I was like sobbing my way trying to write a paper. So that's what I've been enjoying.
We gotta take the joy where we can find it, right? I love that for you. I hate the paper for you. I love the referencing for you.
Bunky with the great comments in the chat. We love to see it.
Is JJ in the new Frankenstein with Oscar Isaac and Andrew Garfield? And we get the Mia Goth? Because I would like.
See, I read JJ is in Frankenstein and assumed young Frankenstein. Like I assumed JJ was in the musical Young Frankenstein.
Which also wouldn't be a surprising outcome for us to discover. Oh, confirming. Yes, I am.
Thank you. It is And the Seer Living Kiss. That is the fanfic that references the one act play with.
So glad that we can all go. We'll all be reading it after the show. Actually, stay on for an extended.
It's a literary masterpiece. I gotta say, like, if you take out the fact that it is supernatural fanfic, it's one of the best written things I've ever read.
Beautiful. Only a matter of time until it disappears from the internet and gets released as a book with like horrible name choices. Can't wait. Alexis, with that, please tell us what you've been enjoying this week. And I'm looking at the list that you put in the show doc, and I don't know which one I want to hear about more. So why don't you tell people the two things that you've written down and explain what they are for everyone's sake?
So I played Birth, the game by Madison Carr.
I don't know, I'm deaf.
This week, which I had been like waiting to come out, and then it came out and I didn't get a chance to play it. So I think I played it all the way through last Sunday. I think I sat down and played it through in a day, and it is just stunningly beautiful. And I want all of the pieces in print form so I can hang them. I mean, it's just a really pretty game. And I really liked all of the puzzles. And I kind of had this love-hate relationship with games that include puzzles, but like that's the type of game I like. But like sometimes the puzzles, like I don't have enough information to feasibly solve the puzzle. And sometimes they handhold me through it, and that's equally as frustrating. And I felt like this game like hit a really good like middle point, like a good mix of that. And the storytelling was just kind of really beautiful. And so, yeah, I played that and I loved it. And then the other one, which is on the completely opposite spectrum, like, please remember me for that, like, vaguely adequate description I just gave of this really cool game. The other thing that I did was that I consumed some Dino Ranch this week. And this has been like an ongoing thing. Audience, you should know that this was almost the Dino Ranch takeover in which you were forced to engage with a couple episodes.
I did suggest that.
Of a Disney kids show. But what was interesting is, like, so we've watched this show a lot in our house. There's an option for a couple different Disney kids shows, but this one where you can have an interpreter on the screen, like in a little bubble, give you the ASL interpretation of the show, which is one of the reasons we started watching it. And even though I have issues with like the idea of domesticating dinosaurs, that kind of like won out. But this week was the first time I've ever seen the trailer, because we just saw that like the show had ASL and dinosaurs and started watching it. Like we just jumped in. And the trailer is like a thing to behold. Like it makes really no sense, but is really serious at the same time. So that I enjoyed watching the trailer for Dino Ranch, I guess. And I enjoyed crafting a giant conspiracy about how Dino Ranch is actually just 911 Lone Star with dinosaurs. Mm-hmm. So those are things that I enjoyed this week. I love that. And in today's world, who's to say it's not? Like, that would be a completely, that would not be the most unhinged, like, story stealing in Hollywood that I would have heard of from this year alone.
this comment from Sylvan, shout out Sylvan, taking me out. Am I the only one who thought Dino Ranch was dipping sauce for Dino Nuggets? And now I need that, Alexis. Now I need, next time you have your vegan Dino Nuggets, for there to be Dino Ranch. Maybe you can get like a dinosaur-shaped bowl that the ranch goes in. That would work.
Oh.
Yeah.
Maybe it can be the same shape as the nuggets, so you get a perfect dip. Listen,
Oh.
I shouldn't have said that live. Someone's going to steal it from me now, and I'm not going to make my $1 billion. But I'll work on that and report back next week. We'll get like a nice little patent in place. It'll be great.
The intern of the week at the vegan Dino Nuggets company is like,
no seriously. Because we know they're watching the show.
Yes.
And they do. We always talk about them. They know. They know their love. Okay. Shall we rant? Are we ready to rant about how rant about all the things, I guess. Let me get the timer up here.
Yeah.
Marissa, tell everyone what you are ranting about this week.
I just need everyone to know everything that has been announced since the Oscars. And I don't even know if I will be able to make it through the list.
I had a breakdown on Tuesday about how much is being announced. It is now Saturday, and I know there's been more.
Yeah.
So I'm personally going to benefit from your work here. So thank you so much for that. Slide, tell everyone what you're ranting about this week.
I am assigning Jane Austen characters to each of the co-hosts you see pictured on screen here.
Beautiful. I
apologize if anybody has hurt feelings in advance.
I can't wait.
It probably means me. Alexis, what are you ranting about this week?
I am providing a listicle of things I have cried about recently.
Beautiful.
I will say some of them I cried about because I was sad, and some of them I cried about because they were really funny. But it's up to you to determine which is which.
Okay, you have to guess along in the comments then as Alexis is ranting what you think the answer is. How does that sound? I'd like audience participation. In a very similar tone, I'm also doing a listicle. I'm going to be rating the most unhinged text that I sent while watching the Eras Tour live streams last night. And I need to shout out Danielle because we've sent so many texts that they wouldn't load. I couldn't scroll up past 4 a.m. And Eras Tour started at before midnight my time. So Danielle sent me many screenshots that I got to pick and choose from. So I've picked and chosen the best for you this evening, and I'll be rating them and explaining them and rating them. We'll see. Shall I begin?
Yeah,
That's how we do it. So yeah.
All right, here we go. Good little asthma cough for you because we all know that my inhaler has been working overtime the past 24 hours. Okay. Last night while watching the Eras Tour live stream, I sent texts to my group of friends and many people on Instagram DMs. These are ones that were sent specifically to Danielle because Danielle sent what she thought was the most unhinged batch for me to react and rate. First one is rep, followed by 7 lines of keyboard smash. And that was when she started the reputation that this is normal behavior for me. So it's like a 2 out of 10 on the unhinged scale.
Okay. Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield are doing a romance movie. It's called We Live in Time. It's not a rom-com, but you could argue that it is because they said the word funny in the deadline announcement. Mia Goth is joining Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein with Oscar Isaac and Andrew Garfield. A League of Their Own was renewed for season 2, but not really because it's only 4 episodes. What the fuck, Amazon? Wicked's premiere part 1 was pushed forward till November 27th, 2024. The Little Mermaid trailer came out.
All right, so first up, we're starting strong with Liz. I have assigned Liz to the Sense and Sensibility character of Marianne Dashwood, who is described as embracing spontaneity, has an excessive sensibility, a love of nature, and romantic idealism. She is, of course, the sensibility of the title, and just felt like a great fit, and then tied in perfectly with Marissa's character.
Okay, so first I was re-listening to the podfic for Falling Slowly, Sing Your Melody, which is entirely Sly's fault. And there's a scene where Buck sends someone out to get a Mickey Mouse for Eddie to give to Chris, and I burst into sobs, even though this is the 90th time I've experienced this moment. I also started crying because one of my grad school besties' moms got us a.
Okay, so I texted in all caps. These are all in all caps, by the way. I cried during Ready for It. This is a known fact, so it's like a 1 out of 10 unhinged. Then I said, hold my hand, hold my fucking hand, hold it, both of them right now. And I don't remember what song that was about, so I'm going to give it a solid 6 out of 10 because it could have been any of them. I said Marjorie and Betty in one night. This set list is for me. I need 5. And I disappeared for like 15 minutes, which was very unusual for my behavior in the chat. That was like a solid 6 out of 10 because we should have predicted that.
The film Bottoms premiered at South by Southwest with Rachel Sennett and Io Debris. It's one of my most anticipated films coming soon. The Joyride trailer was released, which also premiered at South by Southwest, featuring my close personal friend Stephanie Hsu. That's not true. I don't know her. And Sabrina Wu, who I actually did go to summer camp with. That movie comes out July 7th. The other 2, season 3 premieres May 4th. I feel like I'm the only person that's ever watched that show. Ted Lasso is back. Surprise Taylor's versions. Merrily we roll along.
So you cannot have Marianne Dashwood without Eleanor Dashwood, who is a goddamn liar, and it is also assigned to Marissa. Eleanor possesses a coolness of judgment and a strength of understanding, which qualifies her to be her mother's frequent counselor and is the sense of the titular Sense and Sensibility. And I just thought those two complemented each other so well in the book and also in this real life.
That reads. A Marizuri kitchen set with matching dinosaur aprons. I also cried because Birth was really pretty. I cried because it occurred to me that some cats may be introverts or have sensory needs and may still be forced to live with other cats in the shelter so that they're slowly being tortured every day of their life. And it made me really sad. I cried because I was watching the Reputation tour and there's a bit where Taylor remixes the...
Okay, then I said on the note of Reputation, about the lights. There was a question about if the lights were bothering me. And I said, they're nowhere near what Reputation was. And I lived. This is 10 out of 10 unhinged because I should not have gone to the Reputation Stadium tour because the lights were so intense. So very unhinged reflection from me. Then I forgot about Midnight's the album and thought she was going to wrap the show. That's 10 out of 10 unhinged. I literally forgot one of my favorite Taylor Swift albums. I said, I'm going to have to be airlifted out. I don't know when I said that, but I do say that all the time about various events. So that's like a 5 out of 10 unhinged.
Thank you, everyone, for bringing the energy for the other two. I appreciate it. Yes, Hope Sloop is a fan. Hope and I are basically fans of everything the same. Merrily We Roll Along is coming to Broadway for a limited 18-week engagement with Lindsay Mendez, Jonathan Groff, and Daniel Radcliffe starting in September. The last Sondheim musical is being produced in New York. It is now titled Here We Are. It's being directed by Joe Mantello, who directed Wicked. Florence Pugh is doing the puppy interview soon in promotion for A Good Person. The Beef trailer with Stephen Yeun.
So in order to accurately describe which character Alexis got, I have to also assign myself a character, otherwise hers just doesn't make sense. So I am, of course, obviously, Mary Musgrove née Elliot, who is a fucking hot mess, affectionate. She's described as possessing the Elliot pride, and is very unfit to be alone and needs a constant companion, and is the best part of the Persuasion Netflix movie.
She remixes They're Burning All the Witches Even If You Aren't One, and I cried about it. I cried over Jennifer Love Hewitt's delivery of Which One, and I'm still crying about it, honestly. I cried because during the Reputation tour, Taylor Swift danced to King of My Heart in Dallas, Texas with a queer Black man, so I cried. I cried because I told my bestie, who is a fluent Spanish speaker, that their Spanish was really great.
Oh, okay. So then I said, I have full body chills, and I was in like 5 layers of clothing because I was really cold. So I said, I have full body chills, but I'm wrapped like a burrito. And Bucky said, a Chipotle one, I assume. And I said, yes, and gluten-free. And that's 10 out of 10 unhinged for that conversation, but 0% unhinged for this show. Then I said, our friend Eric was there. I said, Eric, have they fed you a meal yet? I think they're legally obligated to. I still think they're legally obligated to if you're going to a 3-hour show. So that's like about an 8 out of 10, maybe.
The Beef trailer was released, which I think is a new Netflix movie. No, series. I think it's a series with Stephen Yeun and Ali Wong. The Jonas Brothers are on Broadway. They've been on Broadway all week. My friend is opening for them tonight. Nancy Meyer's movie at Netflix was in, and then it's out, and now it's being shot to Warner Brothers, maybe because of budget concerns. And the Eras Tour opening night was last night. That's everything on my list from the last 6 days.
On that note, so if I am Mary Musgrove, that means Alexis is obviously Charles Musgrove, who is described as civil and agreeable and superior to his wife in sense and temper, but not of powers of conversation or grace. And he is of very good spirits and temperament, which I think describes us perfectly. I am close to death and can feel my organs decomposing, and Alexis
So
is of good
I
spirit.
said, Sabian, your Spanish is really great. But I meant to text that to Sly, who I was texting at the time. And I cried about that. I cried because there is an Adderall shortage. I cried because it occurred to me that dinosaurs may not have known they were going to die and thus just like lost their families one day. And then I cried because I realized that they may have known and lived in dread of dying and then died.
What a note to end on. Wow. Yeah. Alexis, you've really been through the roller coaster this week. And then on top of that, we threw the most dramatic show in teen history at you to also process. Where are you on the unhinged scale at the moment? I
am like 5 Alpines with accessories and tortilla warmers unhinged.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. Liz, why is Sebastian Stan behind your head? What a segue. What a segue into the topic of tonight's episode, which is Gossip Girl and our host takeover. We're going to talk about Gossip Girl, but I want to preface this with, if you have not watched Gossip Girl, you're fine, because as much as we're going to talk about 3 episodes of the show, maybe more, there's no possible way that this show can get spoiled for you because of the volume of twists and turns it takes. So feel free to continue staying with us and hear us talk about some of the incredible impact this show has had on pop culture, because it's obscene. And with that, I'm going to toss it to Alexis, because I want to hear from you what this show has meant to you, what the project means to you, what your history with it is.
So I will start just by filling in our audience on how unhinged this situation is actually going to be. How this went was, I started with like, maybe I'll do Eureka, the sci-fi family comedy Eureka, as my takeover. And then I decided that didn't fit tonally. And so then we went to 911, but like Sly had a good idea for that. Then we were maybe going to do Power Rangers. And then we were maybe going to do Dino Ranch. And then Liz was like, Gossip Girl. So just know that like those are the options that you could be experiencing right now. I watched this show when I was in grad school the first time. So I was like 21, 22 and had never seen it, was not allowed to watch it when I was growing up, watched it, like binged my way through it, which I do think is probably the best way to watch it. Like if you're going to watch it, I think you like binge it. But at the time I just felt like really connected to certain aspects of the story. I think there are things that the show does. There are pieces of stories that the show does really well. Blair's through line with her eating disorder, I think, is handled really well. That was something I related to quite a bit at the time. Blair as a person, like as someone who is maybe more conniving and manipulative than she wants to be, like coming to terms with her own power, was a story that I really gravitated towards. So I just really liked it for that reason. And I feel like, that a fair amount of people that kind of binged the show through, like you were either like a Serena or a Blair, right? And that kind of decision, that like personal decision, like influenced pieces of your life. And that's how I felt about it. So that is my history with the show. Now, I will say, I did not find as much joy in this show rewatching it. I think I am a different person now than when I first enjoyed the show. And so there were parts of it that just didn't sit with me the same way as when I was just kind of like blissfully like binging it through and could kind of forgive it for some things. I will blame my co-hosts on that, since they have crafted me into a person who apparently thinks critically about media. But so I will say that, but there's my history, I guess. Ta-da.
Beautifully.
I'm sorry. I just need the what it means to us bullet point to be made, because that's really important to me personally.
Okay, because it is really important to Sly personally, and one other person who will get this in the chat. I, in my What It Means to Us, said, the Alexis that loved this show is the same Alexis that thought the tracker bracelet TM was cute and appropriate. Now that is still a part of me, but there are stronger pieces of my personality that have, kind of take turns overriding that Alexis who thinks tracker bracelets are really good Christmas presents.
Yeah, this show really did not age at all in some respects. It really aged like milk. In fact, I would say, and it's incredible that they ever got away with it on multiple levels. And I look forward to revisiting it again in another 10 years to say, like, oh, it got worse, to see what else is maybe, I don't want to say a blind spot at the moment, but there are things that are glaringly obvious now that no one batted an eye at when it first aired. And I'm sure that's only going to continue to evolve as we all grow and time passes. Yeah. I do think we need to acknowledge quickly the outrage in the chat that Power Rangers was an option for this week.
Okay, listen. I was the one that shot down Power Rangers. Apparently, we will have to do that on my next takeover. My thought was that I think when you bring up Power Rangers on the internet, like boys, capital B, come out of the woodwork with their opinions on Power Rangers. And I hold that show near and dear to my heart. It was integral to a lot of who I am as a person. Like, I have multiple belts and multiple martial arts because of that show. And I just didn't really want to share that with toxic fan people on the internet. But we will put Power Rangers on the list for next time.
Everyone's been seen and heard about their desire for a Power Rangers episode of Both of the After Party. We will get into it. It's consider it on the list for a future episode. Beautifully done. I also want to shout out this comment. Alexis is responsible for my introduction to Gossip Girl, and I'm forever grateful that this treasure trove has become a part of my life, and that binging it is the correct way to consume it. Before we get into, I just lost you guys on my screen. There you are. Before we get into all of the segments we have prepared about this, I do want to talk about one of our conversation themes, which is the death of the teen drama, because I think that the show is really interesting to consume as a bingeable show, where it was a show that really was all about the weekly viewing experience. Like, so many people had the dorm room, weekly gathering of everybody watching Gossip Girl together. This was such a part of the pop culture era of gathering and consuming together and making fun snacks and what does a season premiere look like, and the press tours that they would do. They would go on Much Music and MTV and dress in these scandalous outfits and do these incredible photo shoots, and it was very glamorous, and you don't really get that with TV anymore in general. Even Ted Lasso was back, and their press tour was very isolated and regurgitated in a way that was oh, it's back, but not with a boom.
I had to tell several people that it was already out. And they had no idea. So, yeah, maybe not the most successful press tour. But I do want to say, to your point about Gossip Girl in particular, we talked last week about, or I don't know, whenever we talked about Lone Star, we talked about how it's structured as a network TV show that is really meant to be viewed week to week. And when binging it or streaming it, it feels a little disjointed. Whereas I sort of had the opposite experience with Gossip Girl. I think because I was watching it technically out of order, I skipped around a bit, but in succession, I felt the stakes build more than I think if I would have watched week to week or put more space between episodes, because what are the stakes? Money? Your boyfriend's gonna break up with you? I don't know if I could commit to that as much. Like, so having it fed consistently to me, it's like, these people continue to care about these issues, so you need to continue to care about these issues. And as I like went further and further down the list of episodes, my like stress for the characters continued to build. So like it gave me a chance to be more invested, I think, than if it had like, I think probably the community aspect of the week to week would have also added that. But I do like find that for me specifically, as a person who had not watched it previously, I definitely agree that like binging it is the way to go, because it like heightens that drama.
I think it's interesting that Marissa, both you and Liz have talked about the like week to week versus like binging difference in a very like media informed way. I did not think about it that way. So like when I decide if I'm going to watch like if a show is week to week watchable or a show is binge watchable, I come at it from a more like neurodivergent perspective. And mine is like, if I watch this show week to week, like I watch Lone Star week to week, that means every day that I'm not watching that episode, I am either rewatching it or I'm reading about it or I'm talking about it. So I'm analyzing it, right? And if it can't hold up to that week-long analysis, then it needs to be bingeable because I have less time to discover its flaws. So when I refer to Gossip Girl as a bingeable show, it's more if you binge it, you have less time to be like, teen drinking? ? Because you're binging through it.
That's really interesting. And I wonder like Lone Star is such an interesting example here because like while the content you could say has some similarities in terms of interpersonal relationship stakes being really important to how the show progresses, and Gossip Girl is literally only about interpersonal relationship stakes. Like there's nothing else happening here any of the time. Lone Star is interesting because I think it's one of the few shows right now that in that same style of week to week episodes does have a community that is offering that to its viewers. Like you can engage with the community anytime on Twitter to like analyze or discuss or debate and pick and pull it apart.
Can engage with the community every Thursday night while we get drunk and talk.
Plug.
Watch Thursday. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so I think it's interesting. And one of the things when I was watching this back that came to mind for me was this was part of a slew of shows, right? Like this was ending when Pretty Little Liars was like starting. Like there was overlap with Teen Wolf, I think a little bit, Vampire Diaries, like all of these interpersonal teen shows all were happening at once. So it was,
and it like grew out of the like OC 90210 like
One Tree Hill.
All of that. It like
So I think it's also interesting, like, what was the space that Gossip Girl had to retain to, like, in order to stay popular, right? Like, because it wasn't going to ever build stakes around something happening in the world. Like, in no way could they tackle a current event or an issue affecting teens and make it relatable through these people. Like, that was never going to be the lane that they could do justice. So, like, they leaned all the way into camp. Like, really, it was all about, like, the most outrageous stakes that are unbelievable because of the wealth and privilege and prosperity of these people, but had that core that any, like, the feelings of loneliness, the feeling of being abandoned, the feeling of not being understood, the feeling of not knowing who you can trust. Like, those are things anyone can find a relationship with. And out of the context of that writing culture and what it was up against, it's interesting to watch this back and be like, there are so many other ways you can talk about these things and have them be more impactful and reasonable. And I think Lone Star is actually an example of that, the way that they can tackle interpersonal things and real world scenarios and sometimes fantastical scenarios, all within like a more realistic plot device than Manhattan's Rich and Elite, which like the reboot of the show really proved like this doesn't hold its weight anymore. People aren't going to watch. If they wanted to watch this, they would watch the Kardashians. They wouldn't watch like a fictional show about it. Anyone want to jump in on that ramble before we pivot back into the order of the show, Doc?
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, like the umbrella of the death of the teen drama is like, where did they go from Gossip Girl? Like, they have the reboot, which crashed and burned. Like, I feel like there is no sort of space left for the in-betweens. Like, there is either Disney Channel or Euphoria, and the space in between is like, that audience is not being catered to anymore. It's like, Casey Undercover, that's what her show was called. It's like, if you follow Zendaya as you grow up, you go from Casey Undercover on the Disney Channel to Euphoria the next year. And it's like, there's no more bridge for like a PG-13, TV 14, whatever, like ABC, like what happened to ABC Family? I understand there's Freeform, but like, do people watch that? You know, like the teen drama is no longer like a conversation within pop culture. And I also think that like maybe is part to do with streaming and how more mature content has become much more accessible, much more immediately. And so they're like, there doesn't need to be a bridge for that anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, like it's such a big conversation, right? Like there's also the point of when you would structure a cable network, like this show wouldn't be on at 10 p.m. It would, depending on what time zone you live in. Maybe for me out on the East Coast it would be, but they would put a show like this on at a reasonable time for a teen to watch it on their cable TV versus like an adult.
It'd be in like the
show.
7 o'clock slot, not the 8 o'clock slot.
Absolutely. And then, 9, 10 o'clock, you would get like I don't know, like not of the same time era, but you might get How to Get Away with Murder. Grey's Anatomy was always on for us at 10 p.m., so 9 p.m. Eastern. Like you had a more triaged system of knowing who was watching when and when it goes out. But just like you said, now it's streaming, so the audience demographics are so different. Lots of good conversation happening in the chat here. Let's just call it a few. I think we're going to talk fashion. So like, let's circle back on the fashion point because, oh man, there's a lot to discuss about specifically early Gossip Girl, which is what we focused on rewatching here. Escapism is something that's been hard to land in media. And yeah, the escapism that this show has is one of the reasons why I still come back to it, because there's something so nostalgic and unreasonable about Gossip Girl that you can get lost in versus sometimes a more realistic show. It's hard to lose yourself in something maybe more realistic. As someone who grew up just slightly too young to watch Gossip Girl, etc., while they aired, I definitely felt the gap in the industry when I finally reached the age for that demographic. Same. I wasn't allowed to watch Gossip Girl. Show of hands. Who wasn't allowed to watch Gossip Girl when it was originally airing? Why were you?
I wasn't not allowed to watch it, but I
you didn't watch
like it wouldn't ever be something I would have been gravitated towards.
Yeah.
So. I will say, going off of that comment, there were two things that stood out to me on the rewatch. One was like there's a lot of conversations in regards to like parenting right now when we look at like the younger generation, right? And how adult they seem to be at a younger age. And I found that fascinating because to me, Gossip Girl is a show, like these were not teenagers, right? Like they occasionally had like vaguely teenage plot lines. There was a line where they say like, we graduated, and I forgot that they meant from high school. Like I was like, oh yeah, from college, because they are like having parties that college people would have, right? And they are, like drinking like at restaurants at like 18, right? And so I think one of the kind of arguments for getting rid of that type of teen drama was that these were not teens, they were adults, and they were kind of pressuring actual teenagers to grow up too fast and have this more adult experience that they weren't having. So I think it's kind of ironic now that we've gotten rid of a lot of that type of media when we're looking at a generation that seems to be older or more mature than we were when we were teenagers, me being 100 years older than everybody else on this
five.
The other thing was that this show, Gossip Girl, makes a lot of references to the time period in which it was happening. And funnily, all of them aged badly. Like there's a line about like Burkham yoga, and I was like, the sex cult guy, we're referencing the sex cult guy, but we didn't know that in 2009, right? So I think
the former president, who I'm not going to name,
Oh,
I don't want the box
many
to come.
references.
yes,
They're in it.
yes.
They're
Yeah.
in the show. They make appearances.
What was it? Body shots off of Prince Harry, or body shots
Yeah.
with Prince Harry, like came up. So I think that's interesting, because I think that's one of the things that like made the show appealing to watch at the time. Like you felt connected to it because it was referencing you where you were at, but also prevented the show from aging well, because all, you know, as we progress forward, like not all of those things stay the same or turn out well, right? There are some kind of interesting turns of events for a lot of those references.
A really tangible example to add to what you're saying, Alexis. The phones.
Yeah.
The phones, and it's interesting when
We had a note about that.
Okay, see if you can find it.
It's I don't remember. I remember the beginning of the phrase.
Pause to find the note. Everyone hold.
It was
holding.
Alexis mourns the loss of the flip phone.
Yeah.
I did. I was real sad.
No, it's true. And I think the show, I'm going to get my timing a little bit off here, but the show did start when cell phones were a staple in pop culture, becoming a staple in teen culture, but it was not to the quick advancement of society like what we kind of maybe have now or towards the end of the show. And then you very quickly see in season 2 the quick evolution. They're constantly upgrading everybody's phones. And like I was jumping around. I did not just watch the required episodes for this week. I watched I think maybe 40 episodes of Gossip Girl this week. I was just going through this sucker, like just plowing through the show. And like even like the BlackBerry upgrades, and then who had the BlackBerry and what it meant about them. Like Chuck got the BlackBerry as soon as it was available. And like that, of course, Chuck would, because he's doing business and texting girls and like all of this stuff. So of course he would have BlackBerry, but not everybody upgraded to the BlackBerry right away. Other characters still had flip phones or rumors, like the LG rumor phones or Kibo phones, or like, so versus in a show like today, like the Gossip Girl reboot, everybody has a smartphone and they're almost all iPhones. If not, they're all iPhones in that show. So it's interesting. Like I think you also, to Alexa's point about like being able to attach yourself, even something like the way your cell phone said something about you in that era as a teen, and how like it was a representation of your identity that you would have a BlackBerry or flip phone or a pink phone or a black phone. You saw that in the character choices.
I think that's interesting, and I'd love Sly's opinion on this. So The West Wing is a show that I enjoy rewatching, right? There are aspects of that show that I criticize now that I don't know would have been criticized in the 90s, but the phones don't even reach my radar on that show. Like I'm like, whatever, because the core of the show, like the issues discussed on the show are still issues that we're discussing now. You know, they talk about like, free public education, right? Like free education for pre-K. Like those are things that we're still talking about. So I can forgive the show, the kind of historic pieces that are stuck there, right? With Gossip Girl, I felt like because some of the issues are kind of, I don't want to say frivolous, like then I critique things like the phone or Burke.
I think the phones came up specifically in the show. Bunky has it exactly right. They were fashion accessories. So like in a show that's so concerned with the fashion and the clothing choices and how that is such a big visual indicator of who is at what status level, the phones really play into that. So it's something we're looking at a lot. It's something that's in frame a lot and is like actively part of the narrative they're telling, as opposed to The West Wing. Like the phones are not part of the narrative.
Yeah, I also, it's interesting because it's the era where it's just becoming popular to text instead of call. And like more people are getting texting plans, and it's an interesting like narrative device to be like, oh, well, I'm not going to text them or I'm not going to call them. I'm going to go out on the street and meet them to have a conversation. And it's interesting to watch Gossip Girl in particular because it is all about those interpersonal relationships and like who knows what, and this person isn't in on this information, and so they spill the beans to someone else, and like all of that business. And it's like, just get in a group text. Like all your problems would be solved.
No, you're 1,000%. I also like to jump on that point. They push to the absolute limit the number of ways you can have a conversation in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, all of the stakes are about these relationships. So you see them sitting on a park bench. You see them in a coffee shop meeting up for a morning latte. You see them texting. You see them calling. You see them emailing. You see the original like MSN call and like IMing. You see them at a party, in a club, running into each other on a common street, which for Upper East Side, like maybe is more true. But when they moved to NYU and they're like all over the place, it's amazing how many times they can just run into each other and these huge, and they're referencing areas.
And Dan's in freaking Brooklyn.
Yeah. And he's just running into everyone all the time. Like it's remarkable. And I love that aspect of the show. Like, and particularly when it comes to the men, I guess they're boys at the beginning and they turn into men? That's another conversation. But the men who are on this show and the way that their relationships evolve, because you see them constantly like doing things together and talking to one another and sitting on a park bench together and like have like they don't have a phone, or they're not like always on a game, or they're not always like they're always put in these scenarios where they have to talk about their feelings. And I'm like, that's really interesting to me because you don't always get that from teen sitcom either. But yet Nate and Dan are in Brooklyn again getting a coffee, or Chuck and Nate are in the penthouse of the Empire having a conversation and playing pool again because there's nothing else to do on like a Wednesday night when you're 17. So anyway, there's so much we can stay on in this topic. But I was having this conversation earlier this week. You cannot watch Gossip Girl just with a critical lens. This show is meant for camp and fun. So let's jump into our Roses and Thorns segment of this show and talk about some of the things that we loved and some of the things that we did not love watching this back. We only watched a few episodes of the show, and there are many Roses and Thorns, but from the 3 that we watched, we did watch the incredibly iconic Thanksgiving episode, which has been trending all over the internet once again. It usually does a few times a year, but recently it's been back, where everyone gets up from the table and what's the song? What you say? What you say? That song is played. Oh my God, what a treat to watch that back. I haven't seen it like in forever. And when I was rewatching that, I found both my rose and thorn. My rose was the Aaron Tveit jump scare, because I forgot that he's the Congressman Trent. Is Trent?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Trip.
Thank you. Oh, Trip with like 2 P's or something ridiculous. That was my rose. And then my thorn was also immediately in the Aaron Tveit jump scare, because I was like, oh, I forgot it was him. And then it was like, oh, I forgot it was him. And we're going to talk more about that episode and him being in this show. God, there's so many people in this show that you just forget were here. Sebastian Stan being one of them. Fun fact before we move on to Marissa here. The first time I watched Gossip Girl, I did not register this with Sebastian Stan. And on my second rewatch of the show was when I realized that this is Sebastian Stan. And I'm a big Marvel fan at this point. Like, I was all in on Marvel. And I was like, how did I ever watch the show and not put it together that this is babyface Sebastian Stan? So,
Sly, do you want to talk about the person that we recognized, or do you want me to talk about the person that we recognized?
Oh, yeah. There was... this is also in the notes. Let me find it real quick, because it was also in the Thanksgiving episode. You shouted, "Oh my God!" We both collectively gasped, and I went, "Gina Torres!"
We got our 911 Lone Star.
911 Lone Star
crossover.
Yeah, the iconic mother of Vanessa. I also had some notes about her appearance in that episode. I think I said our favorite 911 paramedic, Slay.
I did not mean to derail your roses and thorns.
No.
Yeah.
I'm glad we all had that reaction. I want to add, I then said further into the episode that I think I said that her being in this episode is proof that Gossip Girl takes place in the same universe. Like it's the same character. This is like her pre-life before she
said.
Oh,
and during the same episode, I do have a note that just says Dan Humphrey equals Owen Strick.
And I will reveal myself and say that was in part because I was like, Dan Humphrey would also make 9/11 his entire personality.
My God. Oh my God. Okay. Marissa?
Yeah.
Your turn. Give us your roses and your thorns.
Honestly, along this same vein, my rose was that my friends picked episodes with surprise actors for me personally. I watched everyone agree on what episodes you were going to watch last week, and it did feel like they were personally selected with my interests in mind. Michelle Trachtenberg of Ice Princess fame, one of the best movies ever made. You know, where is he? Is he over here or is he over here? I'm mirrored. I can't tell which side.
Other way.
Sebastian Stan.
Wait. Sebastian
Stan. And Aaron Tveit. We checked all the boxes. One per episode. Marissa's interests down the line. And I felt really seen by that. And then my thorn is sort of what we've spent like the last half hour talking about, is that it's a teen drama, like every teen drama, in which there is no plot, and yet the stakes are the end of the world every episode. Everything that happens is the worst thing that could ever be happening. And I just struggle to believe that sometimes.
I have never once struggled to believe that as someone that lives their life in chaos.
I know you. I know you don't. Of course not.
Sly, give us your rose and your thorn.
Well, my rose is that I had an excuse to FaceTime Alexis and hang out while I watched these episodes. My thorn was that I had to watch these episodes. But really, the normalizing a horrific lack of consent in a show targeted at teens really popped off this viewing where I was not in sleep deprived fever dream of existence, where I was going through all of the Sebastian Stan filmography in the background as I attempted to sleep.
Okay. That is a valid experience to have when taking the show in. Alexis, your rose and your thorn.
Really similar. So my rose was that got to bond with all of my friends. I really enjoyed watching this with Sly, and I liked seeing Marissa so excited in the notes about people that she knew being in the show, people that she knew. Like, you know, Sebastian Stan personally.
Yeah, my close personal friend.
Yeah, you and Sebastian Stan go to Butter every week. It's now canon. And I really got to see Liz's joy. I can't remember the last time I've seen Liz like so excited, like enthused about something other than Taylor Swift, which is totally valid. But this was great to see. I think my thorn is both kind of a rose and a thorn, and it was just that it wasn't as great as I remembered it. And I don't think that makes it bad. I think it worked really well for me in the time of my life that I needed it. And now I'm in a time of my life where like I need the drama that is 911 Lone Star. So that was, kind of a rosy thorn.
It's always hard realizing that a piece of media has not stayed with you when you thought it had, but the memories can. The memories can stay and serve. And it's nice to revisit something and be like, yeah, I'm not in that chaotic stage of being anymore, or this is my comfort show. I don't know if I'm ever going to hit that wall because this is the show. But Alexis, I love what you said about like being able to experience everyone else's experience as part of this. It's definitely one of the most fun parts about this show that we do, the host takeover, seeing a piece of media through everyone's lens. And it's one of the reasons that we bonded so quickly, because we very quickly realized how much we loved Gossip Girl. So fun to kind of revisit that too. Okay, we have some standout quotes, but I think I want to like, there is a lot to talk about with these quotes. So I think let's go back to a conversation theme. And this is really, I don't know who wrote this one, but I really want to talk about this. I'm going to read it exactly as they have written it. Kissing. What does it contribute to the narrative?
Such a strong point.
It is such a good point that I'm going to put it on screen. So who is owning up to this? Who's owning up to this?
I was having strong feelings. I did write this bullet point. I was just having strong feelings because it's well established that I am a particularly ace individual, and I have I'm not always a fan of the portrayal of like over the top sexuality, and I like understand its purpose and like how sexuality is used and expressed in a way to further a story, to further a narrative, and that can be really important. However, in rewatching these episodes, everybody is constantly sucking face, and I didn't feel like it was doing anything to further the narrative or contribute to the story. So like, if you guys can give me any rationality for why people are sucking face in like literally every location we see throughout the show and how that contributes to the narrative they're trying to tell, I would love to hear it. But for me personally, it was a little much.
Alexis, why don't you start this one? I think you had a thought with that nose.
No, that was a nose goes. That was a I don't go first.
Oh, okay. So Alexis,
I have an answer.
Yeah, Marissa, go for it.
So the answer is, it does not serve the plot. It serves
the
image of the show.
All
they are
right.
presenting a glossy, sexy CW show in 2009. And that means teenagers need to be in lingerie and kissing all the time.
I will say that Sly is not calling me out, but while we were watching this show, every time they kissed, I went, kissing. So I am part of the problem. That is why I did not feel I could answer this question.
Yeah, one of my notes is literally just kissing and then the woozy face. Like, we were having strong feelings together about the excessive kissing in the show.
So I have a different answer. I totally agree with what Marissa said. But I think there's a layer of context to add about the promotion of season 2 specifically. And the show specifically. So we could probably pull some of these up in a minute here. If someone wants to Google the Gossip Girl parent review promotional posters. They did this series of posters when Gossip Girl was, Alexis, was getting tanked by all the like council of parents watching TV. Like all these parent councils of content was like, Gossip Girl is the worst thing. And they took those quotes and put them on these outrageous images of the characters in bed, the characters kissing, the characters like really scandalously dressed, like your teen shouldn't watch this. And they really owned that narrative that it was raunchy television. And you can see in season 2 and 3 that they, if possible, really upped the ante when it came to the sexual content, because that was part of what they were banking the success of the show on. And again, like trying to carve that lane to other teen shows. They were like, we're going to be the one where like sex sells and all of that kind of narrative. Like we're not straying away from the sexuality of teens. Like it's going to live here in Gossip Girl where other shows are like too scared to go there. So that's why there's so much of it in the earlier seasons. I will say, I don't think that really changes as the show moves on, but the characters do grow up. Like they're forced to. They leave high school, they go to college, they start having these life experiences. And I skipped all of season 4. I skipped the rest of season 3 and I jumped right into season 5 tonight, which is a very different place. Here they are. Yeah, like very scandalous.
I remember these.
You don't or you do?
No, I do. I totally remember this.
Sorry, there we go. Yeah. It was a big deal. And like those posters were one of the headlines forever. Like, oh my God, can you believe they're doing this? It was like a discussion on talk shows. It was, it really worked in terms of a PR strategy, in terms of talking about this show. Later in the series, it's really interesting to see how the sexualized content both continues and then changes. And specifically with like Chuck and Blair and their whole situation, and Blair, her evolution and her storyline about being a woman in society and a woman who's being covered by the media in a way that Serena always was. And Serena always had this like, not like raunchy image, but she was like always partying and always associated with these people. And then Blair kind of has a moment where she's all of a sudden in the public eye, and she has to change her approach to like, is she going to make up with Chuck like in a random place? Is she with someone else? And to me, the plot device of kissing actually matters at that point, or at least it's examined from a really interesting way, because you see these characters go through a different way of being public and privileged, and like they kind of have not ownership, but at least a different kind of awareness of what their relationships mean. And I don't know, it changes a little bit for me. And that was interesting to watch. I've never like jumped plot like that. I usually watch it. I'm a religious Gossip Girl viewer. I started episode 1, season 1, and I end at the finale of season 6, and I do not jump around. It's the first time I've done that. So to see that kind of stark change, like they go from sucking face every 5 minutes to like maybe more intentional choices being made, that was really interesting to me. And even the way they kiss is like choreographed differently. Like there's some things that happen with Dan and Serena. They're not together in later seasons. They're putting like, oh, like we have to pretend we're dating. And the way that they're intimate with each other, like is choreographed very differently too. So yeah, it's an interesting plot device for sure that has a very different use in season 2 than it did in season 5.
I will say, after hearing you discuss that, Liz, one of my favorite, we actually didn't watch one of my favorite episodes of the show, which is Victor Victrola. And
so some of us did. So continue.
And one of the episodes that I go as Blair from Victor Victrola every Halloween. I find some excuse to make it happen, right? Like that is an episode for me. And I do think one of the things that this show did at the time, whether it intended to or not, was kind of move away from the purity culture narrative that we were seeing in a lot of other shows at the time. They deal with it a little bit, but like Blair losing her virginity to Chuck in the back of the limo, like she goes to confession. It is not like a thing that she is, going to immediately be impregnated or like lose her life over. Like it is just not that serious. It's serious for a couple episodes and that's kind of it. And I think that was probably a really smart choice of the show to make. I do have issues as the show progresses with the way they handle consent, which I think is probably more telling of where the time was at, like where America was at in 2009. But that stands out to me as, after hearing you say that, Liz, is like kind of a smart way that the show kind of played on the sexuality of teens. Mm-hmm. On a lighter note, I will say that I would love for marketing to go back to that energy. Like, I think that campaign is like brilliant. Like, give me some like 911 like buddy posters over like criticism of, what the show is doing. I think that'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. Maybe that's something we can think about doing ourselves. Can we make 911 and 911 Lone Star promotional posters that give off that Gossip Girl energy? We can have a discussion after the show.
You know what it would be for Lone Star, though? Would just be people being like, why is this a Rob Lowe self-insert show? And then it would be Rob Lowe. Like,
Yeah. I love it. That's so funny. Oh my God. I want to go back to your point about consent and like jump on that a little bit, because we wanted to talk about Nate Archibald. Watching this back, I actually think that Nate Archibald is one of the worst examples of consent in this show, and he aged
terrible, man,
so poorly. Like he was abused by so many people, and it was just not registered. Like it was so offhandedly mentioned time and time again, and never dealt with in this show. And I'm like, I don't know if you could write a character like that anymore without it being like like, I don't know if you could even air a character like Nate Archibald anymore. And we have lots to say about Nate Archibald besides this one very specific point, but that really stood out to me rewatching this, like these episodes. It's incredible when you think about consent, like in the way that the men in the show were treated and the way that they talk and then don't address things. And I know there was laughter. I know it wasn't towards what I was saying specifically, but I do want to know what the joke is about Nate Archibald here.
The joke was I thought you were transitioning to our third conversation theme, which is what I wrote about Nate Archibald.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. I'm 100% with you. The way Nate's relationships with frequently either much younger or much older women is not well handled and would definitely be a cause for conversation nowadays. But do you want me to read the bullet point that I had written down about Nate
and just go straight into your bullet point, please? Read it more.
Okay. I did. I wanted to pose the conversation. Nate Archibald and Compet. How his life would change if there was a different mix of people involved in that threesome. In one of the episodes we watched, he was like, threesomes, man, like they don't live up to the hype or whatever. And I'm very convinced that threesome had a very specific combination of people, and if maybe that was flipped, he would have had a much different experience within that interaction. And I just wanted to pose that live on air for you all to ponder.
I'm desperately trying to find my notes about this episode. Can you remind me which one it was? Because I also made notes about this very specific moment.
I think it was Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I think
Dan is the one that has the threesome.
Yes.
Oh yes,
Nate references
Vanessa and Olivia.
Yeah, yes. Nate says basically references a previous experience we did not see Nate have.
Yeah.
I did write in my notes, and I don't know if I stand by this, but in the moment, my thought was Nate should be a sex therapist, and I would like to pose. Imagine if Nate and the Spectator arc never happened. That newspaper never happened. And instead, Nate went to school to become a sex therapist, and how different the show would be.
You also wrote down the same exact quote in your notes.
I do love, like,
here are my notes.
One of my favorite things about Nate, and Nate is one of the wildest characters on the show. There's so much to say about how horribly he's written, the acting by Chase Crawford, how Chase was given not a lot to work with, which contributes to the poor performance. Anyway, there's a lot there. But then the relationship that Nate and Dan have is so endlessly fascinating to me. Because Marissa, in season 1, Nate is forced into circumstance where he has to live with Dan.
Great.
For a period of time. So we are made to believe, and then there's drama as always on the show. But the way that arc happens, and then everything that ever happened to Nate and Dan after that point is just like, there's nothing behind it. It's like glass eyes. Like, absolutely, you can't read anything between the way they talk to each other. And they call each other and they're like, oh, here's one problem. Goodbye. I'll talk to you in 5 episodes. It's
seriously, I had no idea they were even friends until this episode, until the Thanksgiving episode. I was like, Nate and Chuck are friends, and Dan is friends with Serena. That's all I know.
I will say that I think it's interesting because the reboot really tried to correct the straightness of the original, right? Like the reboot was like, the problem with the original Gossip Girl was that it was too straight, right? Which interesting thing to ding on. And I think what going off of what you said so well earlier, Liz, right? Like the issue with doing Gossip Girl now is not straight or queer characters. The issue with doing Gossip Girl now is that we care less about what really rich people are doing, right? And so that's really why it didn't work. But they did try to like correct on that and introduce a more a wider spectrum of sexualities in the show, because this
However,
one is, wow.
We did have a collective note from Alexis and I at the end of the Thanksgiving episode, where Alexis said, the way that he turned, I almost thought they, referencing Chuck and Nate, were gonna kiss.
I did. And then Chuck puts his arm around him, and that hand lingers.
Chuck and Nate always look like they're about to kiss 100% of the time. Those two are talking this close together at all.
Yes,
nose to nose, constantly.
For me to realize it, for me who said that the Australian men's firefighter calendar would be better if they wore sweaters, that is how bold it had to be for my brain to be like, were they about to smooth?
Marissa?
Of all the smooching, that was unfortunately not one of them.
Oh, great point. What was I going to say? I don't know. It's not important.
All right. Well, I want to pivot to a point that it's in the range of the conversation theme, so not explicitly written down. We need to talk about the hair. The hair in the show. And specifically, Marissa, one of the reasons why I was so excited for you to watch the show is because you saw some of the worst hair in Gossip Girl. From bad extensions to bad styling to really 2010 core curls, which you're displaying with tremendous accuracy behind you. Yeah. What did you think of the hair of Gossip Girl?
Very of the era. Very many barrel waves. Almost too many.
I mean, of the era, there were too many barrel girls.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Honestly, my main issue was that Blake Lively's hair was always frizzy. There were always flyaways. And I wasn't even watching for consistency. I was just bothered by how frizzy her hair was. I was like, I don't believe that you are a person that is wealthy enough to get a blowout every week. At one point, Blair's I don't know. It was Serena was I'm not doing anything, blah, blah, blah. And Blair's so you got a blowout to not do anything or whatever. And I was like, it does not look like you got a blowout. It looks like you just walked 10 blocks in the wind. That was my main problem.
That is so accurate. Serena's hair is always okay, I know the green screen's killing it, but I really tried to do the Serena van der Woodsen.
Lovely and luscious, and you did a hair mask last night.
I did do a hair mask last night. So in fact, Marissa once again is the most accurate hair commentary on the internet. The thing about Serena's hair, I would like to think that mine is looking kind of healthy right now, but there are many points in the show in Gossip Girl where her hair is I don't know how to describe it, but it's chunky. Her hair doesn't have any I don't know how to describe what I'm saying, but Blair's is always clean and looks like it's very hydrated and hairsprayed and done. Blair's hair is never out of place. And Serena's is constantly looking like she was at a club the night before and sweat her ass off and then woke up and went, and then went to get brunch. It's always a mess 100% of the time. And yet that also defined a whole era of so many people were you know what, we'll just do this and we won't discover dry shampoo until 2013.
Yeah.
Alexis?
I had a couple notes about Serena's hair. But one of them that I did not write down was that I think one of the things that they tried to do and maybe don't execute particularly well is be Serena is flighty and free-spirited. And so her hair should reflect that, right? And there were two choices in particular that they made to represent that just blew my mind. One is the infamous pinning of the tassel with no graduation cap into her hair, which I think has been seen everywhere. The other is that in one of the episodes we watched for this show, she has approximately 72 bobby pins haphazardly shoved in the back of her head. And the continuity...
like 4 inches of her hair is still out. It's like
Yes.
the bobby pins are holding nothing.
And they're all over the place, and the continuity was atrocious. Like, I was like, how many times were you taking them out and redoing those 72 bobby pins for them to never look the same? Like, what? But then there were moments where, like, she would pull off a really great, like, messy bun, like the Thanksgiving episode. I think her hair, it's, you know, something I aspire to. So, yeah.
Yeah.
When Serena's hair was styled, like in the messy bun from the Thanksgiving episode, Slade. 100% with you. Sly, do you have any thoughts on the hair of this show? Because it's truly something.
I don't look at people's like whole faces enough to notice hair ever.
I have one more hair thought that I just remembered. Chase Crawford never should have cut his hair before season 5. The jump from season 3 to season 5.
This is my church.
And the
Amen.
Is bad.
I think about half of my thoughts around Gossip Girl from this specific rewatch, not usually, but this specific rewatch have been about Nate Archibald. I don't know why Nate Archibald has been such a subject. No, I do. I'm just
I
going
was going to say, you don't? Because I know why.
Alexis, tell the people why I'm so fixated on Nate Archibald.
Don't you watch that other show that Chase Crawford is in?
Yes, I do.
Okay, that was my thought.
Okay. You know what? That's accurate. This is the first time I've watched Gossip Girl since the last season of The Boys came out. So, correct. I was going to reveal what we did last Saturday night as a group. The group activity of the team meeting that was last Saturday night. We went deep on the Gossip Girl wiki pages.
Oh!
As a team. And we... If you go right now onto the wiki page for Nate Archibald, we added facts and under the skills and hobby section because it was severely underwritten. So Wilter the After Party has left their official mark on Nate Archibald wiki. And I think that that's also why, because I was trying to see what we were missing.
It's still there. Thank God.
No one else checked on the Nate Archibald wiki in the past week?
No,
I want to know how many more hits the site got because we updated it. But if you want to read about Nate Archibald wiki, Sly, do you want to share your screen and show everyone what we added? And honestly, I'm going to go back and add more.
I feel like we need to warn all future shows that are covered on Wilter the After Party that we're going to be coming for their wikis in one way or another because this was a very fun time.
Marissa, can you do that in the highlight video? Can you ensure that we do a PSA?
Sure.
That we are coming for your wikis.
Originally, there was just these 2 notes. So we did add 2 pieces to the skills and hobbies here.
Now listen. Is Nate Archibald a well-rounded character with depth? No. But does he have more than 2 identified skills and hobbies? Absolutely, because lacrosse and track and field are very season 1 specific, and I stand by that.
I would also like to say charming, which Sly and Liz, I think, kind of beautifully came up with, has the vibe to me of like a Sims character, like when you're choosing their traits. Charming!
I mean, yeah, 1,000%. Journalistic integrity, we really struggled to come up with the right terminology for that one, but
yeah,
we did it.
Also
we
added the bad liar piece, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that us?
We really
what's that?
He's a bad liar. Yeah.
Did we add that?
Oh, maybe not. Maybe I made that up.
No, I think we did.
I think so.
I think we did because I was crying that the first fun fact about him was the fact that his favorite movie is The Sound of Music.
And for context, while this wiki was being edited, I was editing the Oscars ballot that we posted the next day.
There was very important work.
I hadn't seen Gossip Girl at that point, so I was like, this is just noise in the background as I'm in Canva, like making sure everything is correct. And everyone else is in the stream cackling, like on the floor. We're so funny. We need to edit every wiki for every show we ever watch now. And I agree, because it was really funny to listen to without any context.
Okay,
But
so
while we're here, do we have anything we want to add to
I'd like
the
to
Gossip
throw
Girl
it to
wiki?
Marissa. Marissa, please, now that you have
We
context.
can pick another character, but like any page you want to edit on the Gossip Girl wiki, we can make that happen right now.
Oh no.
I'd also like to hear from everybody watching if there is a piece of Gossip Girl trivia that should live on the wiki. If you have thoughts on Nate Archibald specifically, please. Hannah's losing it in the comments. This page is hysterical. Not the lead shout out.
I do feel like now that we've officially talked about it on our show, the trivia can include that hit YouTube live show, Will Throw the After Party, posited that Nate Archibald's life would have been different if the threesome would have been comprised of different people.
Should have been a sex therapist. That is. Wait. Is this the right place on the wiki to put this fact? Do they have a media
The trivia?
section? Hold on. I am now opening the Nate Archibald.
Yeah, photos, relationships, personality, appearance, and style. This is all.
Appearance and style. Never should have cut his hair.
Is that the wait? Oh, we should add that because that's not there.
Mm-hmm.
Is there
Where
nothing
are we
about his
adding
hair?
There's nothing about the drastic haircut of before season 5.
Wow.
Can
He
we
has
add
golden blonde hair and sparkling
His
green
hair is
eyes.
not blonde.
This is
Oh,
the
I guess it's
book.
blonde in the book.
Oh.
Under the TV section of the page? This is really rigorous, a really invigorating show for everybody watching. I hope you're enjoying this as much as we are. Yeah, I think we could add it to appearance. We can do a paragraph called "In the Show" specifically. In the show, Marissa, dictate this one. You share.
In the show, Nate has swooping Justin Bieber-esque locks in seasons 1 through 4. And made the tragic choice to chop them off forever. I don't know. Anyone have any editing to that?
No, I think it's
in
beautiful.
the comments, in the chat, anywhere.
I think, yeah, in the chat, please chime in. I think it's worth saying that in the season finale, or in the show finale, he uses an excessive amount of hair gel to show that he is serious about becoming the mayor of New York City.
Well, that's an absurd character choice. I love that.
Scene in the
series finale. He keeps the short hair and adds copious hair gel to show his maturity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Alexis, is there anything you would like to add?
Not to the wiki. I do have a hair note before we finish, but not to the wiki.
What was he running for?
To show an attempt to show his seriousness before running for mayor.
To show his maturity in an attempt to win
there you go.
the mayoral race.
Beautifully done, Sly.
Can I get
season 6?
Gossip Girl.
Can I get the episode
series finale? Season 6, episode 10.
Is there a name for it?
New York, I Love You, XOXO.
Oh, I forgot.
There we go.
Beautiful. That's a spoiler if anyone hasn't seen the season finale, but Also, if you think us telling you Nate Archibald running for mayor is the biggest spoiler,
Is that the biggest spoiler? I can tell you who Gossip Girl is right now.
Everyone's life would be better if they got to kiss Chuck Bass. Let's discuss. Shall we pivot slightly and talk about Chuck Bass?
Can I add my hair note?
Sorry,
though?
please.
Okay, so in my my continued effort to link all shows viewed to 911 and 911 Lone Star, I will say that one of the Gossip Girl episodes we watched mentioned that Serena had claimed to have an eat, pray, love phase.
Yes.
When she was actually gallivanting around the world. And I may
If
or
I
may
had a
not
nickel.
have pointed out, I may have said if I had a nickel for every time a bitch with good hair went on an eat, pray, love phase as an excuse to get out of a relationship, I would have 2 nickels.
Which isn't what? How does the end of that quote go? I'd have 2.
Which
nickels.
isn't a lot, but it's
weird. That
it happened twice.
Weird that it's happened twice. It's weird that Connie Britton also did it. Okay,
I love it. Oh my god.
On hit.
Okay, so now we're on the Chuck Bass wiki, and we're also editing trivia about Chuck Bass.
Live show.
Thank you.
Will after party.
I'm pretty sure the trivia is not supposed to be about the press coverage of Gossip Girl, but like, let's see how long this lasts.
It should be. If they can have a trivia fact that he is an atheist, we can be a trivia fact. Listen, I will say I am a deeply reluctant but very strong Chuck Bass fan.
Tell me more, please. I would love to hear you dig in.
I'm like, I want to hate him, but he says a lot of the right things.
Thank you.
So, okay, it is important for you to know in season 1, he does things that are very illegal and bad. He tries.
Don't they all?
No, but he tries to assault multiple minors. It's like a whole situation. Like, it's really bad. So this writing of Chuck Bass is it was so because they realized very quickly how they should not have written him that way after season 1. And in season 2, we get really, in my opinion, an entirely new character presented to us versus the season 1 Chuck Bass that's like sleazy, trying to assault minors, smoking cigarettes, like all the time for a 16-year-old, 17-year-old. So I agree with you, but under the public caveat of season 1 Chuck Bass is an entirely different character that needs to be thrown in the garbage can permanently. And season 2, 3 Chuck Bass, I have thoughts.
I will also say on the same note, pilot Mrs. Waldorf Blair's mom was so terrible they completely recast her and said nothing about it.
Wow. They love to do that.
We really saved you from some season 1 trauma dumping that happens very quickly.
I didn't need it. I watched episodes in season 2, 3, and 5, and I followed it completely. I had so many questions watching Timeless. I had so many questions watching 911, Lone Star. But like, I got it. I was 100% in on Gossip Girl, and that is how you know that it's a true teen drama, because they repeat the same plot in every episode.
I will say, I mentioned earlier that I do the Victor Victrola outfit every year during Halloween week. But upon reviewing the show, I did decide that this year, maybe it needs to be Chuck's basketball attire.
Oh, yeah.
Include a polo and a velour sweatsuit together.
Yeah.
Do we have anything to add to the romances of Chuck Bass?
Jenny Humphrey was not a one-night stand, but leave it because we don't have time to write a thesis on this show. That is the extensive romances of Chuck Bass, because he is entirely fixated on Blair Waldorf.
As he should be.
Yeah.
Marissa, tell me your favorite thing about Chuck Bass, or your favorite moment, or your favorite
Chuck Bass
thing.
go back through my little noteses when I was nice about him. Oh, he was great in the Thanksgiving episode. I did not enjoy him as much in season 5.
Okay. This is
but also I did, but like I was like, well, I'm like I got it. I was like, no, this is like a years long plot where we're gonna go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and obviously their end game. Like I get it. But I did not really care for his self-reflective era.
So this is our first marital spat.
Oh.
Because
not your first. I spent the first season of our live show thinking you were getting a divorce every week. This is not
Very
your
true.
first marital spat.
Very true. Okay, not our first. The Chuck Bass redemption arc of season 5.
Yeah.
Tonight, until I joined the pre-show.
Yeah.
Okay, until a half hour before the show started, was watching season 5. And
I know.
Only watching, not even the episodes. I would go through every episode and just watch Chuck Bass.
But I only watched episode 6 in season 5. Like he hadn't gotten that far at that point.
Oh my god!
I really didn't. This is my favorite. I have an answer. My favorite Chuck Bass moment of the episodes that I watched was him being like, Blair, it's just a game. And he like let her go. And then I think it was Nate that was like, why'd you do that? Or no, maybe it was Serena. I don't know. I was like, why'd you do that? And he was like, because I love her. But I can't. And I was like, well, thank you. There we go. That's all my favorite tropes.
All of them in one man. Chuck Bass. Alexis, as the owner of Blair Waldorf on this show, like you own Blair Waldorf, which is a funny reference to the fact that Chuck treats her like property at one point in the show. What are your thoughts on Chuck Bass?
Just what?
Yeah, a couple times. Okay, so I will. This is kind of pivoting back to an earlier kind of conversation point. But my issue with consent in the show was actually not, I think, Liz, you very rightly like illustrated like men in the show, you know, like that was an issue. Mine was an issue more with Chuck and Blair's relationship, specifically in how they involve other people in their sexual activities and don't get consent from any of the people that they're involving. The reason I bring this up is in part because I teach consent classes. And so if I didn't, I would feel bad, but is also because I think this show kind of struggles in what to do with their sexual relationship as they evolve Blair as a character. In season 2, there are a lot of references to like, Chuck is ruling, you know, this sexual aspect of this relationship. And we know by the end of it that is just false, right? Like we get multiple references to Blair being the more dominant sexual partner in the relationship between the two of them, right? But especially in season 2, the show seems to struggle a little bit with like how to evolve Blair and still have this relationship because, you know, Chuck had sexually pursued like so many people up to that point. So with that being said, I think one of the things that I really like about Chuck Bass is as that relationship evolves, he is kind of our morally gray villain, right? So he is the one with which we get to see Blair grow and stand on her own, which is not something we get to see in her relationship with other people, with other male characters on the show. And there's a quote
or just with other characters on the show, just to add to your point. Yeah.
Yes. And one of the quotes in I think it was the last episode we had on the list to watch. But you know, he says, Chuck says to Nate, like, you were wrong to want her to be something other than who she is, right? And I think the idea that Chuck really embraces Blair and allows Blair to be Blair rather than trying to change Blair is a really appealing part of his character. I will say his character falls short in its ability to constantly wear 3 patterns at the same time in 2009. And I was also sad that the monkey from the book never made it to the show to be his pet. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Chuck.
Yes. I always wondered why the monkey from the books did not make it to the show. I do not know the answer to that question, but especially when Justin Bieber. Anyway, We don't have enough time to dig into the monkey at all. We do have time to talk about the commodification of wealth post-recession.
Ooh,
Who wrote that in the show doc?
that was me.
I was gonna say technically I typed it, but it was all Marissa's idea.
Listen, I don't have a fully realized thought about this, but there is something to be said about the way that entertainment demonstrated wealth post-recession, post-2008 recession. And in thinking about the ways in which media is pivoting away from that, especially on the toes of another recession, and the ways in which the culture is a bit more class conscious than it might have been 15 years ago or whatever. And I don't know. There's something about like the aspirational presentation of wealth. And I think about the 90210s, the Gossip Girls, the Pretty Little Liars, like all of the shows in which characters had struggle and drama and interpersonal intrigue, and it's like sexy and glossy and everyone looks beautiful and their lives are so hard, but it's only because they're so rich. And like the ways in which that was a trend in entertainment, in scripted media in particular, and the ways in which that has like pivoted to influence, like that gave way for influencer culture, like riding the heels of the Kardashians. Like the commodification of wealth as entertainment is just, I don't have a fully realized thesis about it, and I don't know how much the recession, like the Great Recession, gave rise to it or gave fall to it. I don't know what side the recession plays on that, if it made wealth more aspirational or less appealing. But
I'm sure
that's just a thing I was thinking about.
There's probably an actual dissertation or 10 that have been written about that we could probably find.
Yeah.
Because it's so huge. I think like to zoom in a little bit in the time we have left, they do make multiple references to the recession throughout the show, right? And about the impact the recession had on their characters, their families, things that were done well. As part of the backstory of Dan's dad and the art gallery is the recession kind of killed that pivot for him. And that's part of the reason why Dan's family is struggling. And then there's an interesting conversation about how Dan's family is struggling in the eyes of the characters, but is his family really struggling? And Dan's always called poor. And what does it mean to be poor in New York City and poor in Brooklyn? And like, is he really, or just in relation to the people that he's surrounded by? And like, so it's interesting how the show was birthed at a time where examples of wealth in media were so particular and people were dealing with very real realities from the recession in real time versus watching it today. You think of the recession, like we've had multiple things happen since the recession, right? Multiple impacts that they've been happened and evaluated and it's evolved and da-da-da-da-da. But this was still so timely to the moment that it was coming out in. And like, that's part of the intrigue of watching this show is like, oh, these were characters that some were like completely unaffected by the recession. Some had their lives changed for the better. Some lives like fell apart. Like, yeah, it's interesting like how the show specifically came out in that moment and was like, we're going to provide escapism in a different way. We're going to show you a world where like wealth is still like at its prime for these very few people.
Yeah. I want to hear what econ girly Alexis has to say.
Econ girly Alexis?
Alexis loves to talk about money.
I find financial crimes to be fascinating, and I also love taxes. Not that we have taxes, but I love tax. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I think you all hit the nail on the head. especially in regards to escapism. One of the things that I think is really interesting is like you spoke earlier, Liz, about kind of cell phones telling us about like characters and where they are at in relation to other characters and where they're at in the story. And this show does make interesting references to who understands that they're wealthy and who doesn't in the same way. You know, there's a storyline where like Blair's family has run out of money because of the dowry, because of her leaving the prince, right? Like that's a whole thing. But in the first or second episode that we watched for this, you know, Mr. Humphrey makes a statement about like, we didn't use any of your mom's emergency money. And, you know, somebody comments like, well, yeah, like, I think it's Ginny, thank goodness for salaried servants and like an open tab at the club or whatever, right? But that really kind of tells us where their family is at, you know, in relation to Lily's in terms of wealth and where, you know, how far they have kind of fallen from understanding like where their bracket was originally. So I do think this show does interesting, you know, things like that. I think that commentary is fascinating.
Sly, anything you want to add here? No. All right. Let's park it there because we have 10 minutes left. And I want to do some rapid fire standout quotes because we all pulled 3 standout quotes from the episodes that we watched. And some of them, I purposefully chose mine so they would be different from everyone else's because I saw some of my favorite quotes in each of your lists. So let's go one by one and each share one of our favorite standout quotes. And if anyone wants to add on to them, please feel free. I'll get started. My first standout quote from watching it back was Blair saying, "No man is worth suffering the indignity of mass transit." That is such a slay. I'm obsessed. In a city known for its traffic, no man is worth suffering the indignity of mass transit. Popped off. Marissa?
I just want to glee it up a little.
Remind me who said that?
Jane. Peak 2010.
Sly?
Mine is from Serena, and it's, "Oh wow, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the smoking gun, a secretive phone call."
And I'd like to add, because that moment also stood out to me, she said it with a completely straight face.
Yeah, just
there was
deadpan.
not one.
Yeah.
You just delivered that line so beautifully, and she did not.
There was no emotion behind those eyes.
It's so funny. Oh my God. Alexis?
I can't believe I have to see my sworn enemy with Nancy Pelosi hair.
Hair I would not have described as Nancy Pelosi hair.
Right?
At all.
Oh my God. I feel like that line's probably been recycled since Nancy Pelosi is still in politics. Can people still use that? I'm not sure. Okay, my next one is also from Blair on the same episode about the same topic about Nate and her going to different schools. She says going to Columbia is like going to Guam. Yeah, just the scandalous life of the rich and elite. That's it, summed up. Marissa?
Another Blair. My favorite read she ever gave in the episodes I watched, "Your American Girl hair and poreless skin." I screamed.
That was
And I still can't tell if American Girl hair is supposed to be a compliment or an insult. I don't know.
When I heard it, I was hoping you would know. Like, I was like, I'll ask Marissa.
I have no idea. Because poreless skin, obvious compliment. The whole thing about this, like, the conceit of this game is that she's jealous and wants to humiliate these women. Like, presumably, it's something positive that she wants to. I don't know.
line is too deep for the show is the problem, I think.
It's too smart.
Yep. Sly?
Another line that might be arguably a little too smart for the show was at the polo match, and long lost son bestie is like, everything is so white, and then Vanessa is like, welcome to my life or something.
Yep. The polo match is so iconic. We didn't even discuss the polo match is the perfect summary of the entire show to me. Like everything about it.
The horrible horse riding technique.
Yep.
Really?
I will say I'm gonna switch one of mine out because I talked about one of mine earlier. And the one that I'm switching it for, I took because it reminded me of something we would say to Liz. Which is, Gabriel is from North Carolina. That's in the United States. Which is in response to Blair implying that Gabriel is a foreigner.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does sound like something you have, in fact, said to numerous times. Okay, my last line is from the Thanksgiving episode, and it's like one of my favorite things about the show is trying to listen to the characters when they're supposed to be having small talk before the actual conversation starts. And Nate and Chuck are so often put in a scenario where they have to be talking and somebody walks up to them, and they're my favorites to try and figure out, like, what are they actually talking about when they have no script. But this one comes from Vanessa walking into Thanksgiving with her mom, and she's like mad at her mom the whole episode, and it's like just a terrible arc. But she says, that's why it's called a doorman. It's not derogatory. Yeah. And I'm like, I want to hear the entire elevator ride of the conversation that ended in, that's why it's called a doorman. It's not derogatory.
She's like, Mom, his job is to open the door. That's why it's called a doorman. It's not derogatory. I'm like, Vanessa is so out of touch in that whole episode. I wanted to scream at her.
That's her entire
She was
presence.
so annoying.
No. I am not a fan of Vanessa because the writing is so poorly done.
I had multiple notes about how she is the poor one and is dressed so richly. Like, she looks so rich in every single one of her outfits.
I feel so bad for the actress. I don't know the name of the actress that plays Vanessa, but I truly feel like she was one of the characters that had the harshest set of circumstances imposed upon her by the writers. Like, just not great. Okay, Marissa, your last quote.
I truly ascended when I heard this. Tell Jesus the bitch is back. I screamed, and then I felt like my whole body was like vibrating. It was a thrilling experience. You know the like TikTok audio that's like, tell Jesus the bitch is back, and then it goes into like this stomp music where you're like strutting. I thought forever that was from like a Real Housewives series. I had no idea it was from Gossip Girl, and I especially had no idea that Michelle Trachtenberg was the person who said it. I lived. So that's my favorite. Thank you so much.
I love that for you. My final quote is not exactly a quote from the show, but it is a quote from Alexis while we were watching the show. We're watching, and Nate does his whole "will do, man, peace" on the phone, and Alexis just goes, "Will do, man, peace. That's what straight people say."
Listen, there was a lot of confused energy happening on the show.
Nate answered the phone several times, just going, "Yo."
That's what cracked me up. I was like, we went from "will do, man, peace" to "yo."
Mm-hmm. Truly.
Sorry.
I will say, before I give my quote in response to Marissa, one of the things that really took me out during that episode, the episode your quote was from, is that as a person that lives in the South, I still hear people unironically say, I have so much love in my heart for her. And it, like, to hear it in the episode just about destroyed me. But my final quote is one that my mother still quotes all the time. And that I can't do the delivery justice. But Blair, I see you're wearing your beret. Who are we spying on tonight?
So good.
And it's all on the breath. It's like, I see you're wearing your beret.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're like,
I'm obsessed with the fact that that is a part of your everyday life.
listen, I wear a beret well. So
Facts.
That's
Absolute
true.
Facts. There's no argument from this show. You
Just
rock the
Alexis
beret.
Blake at Instagram.com.
So true, bestie. Oh my god, what a treat. Okay, I
do want to give a shout out to North Carolina. Very
Yeah.
good.
yes. Oh, it was so good. I've loved having Hannah here tonight.
Yeah, it's been a treat having you live with us. So great. I do want to ask quickly, I know we're at time here. Does anyone have any rapid fire slays that they would like to throw into the mix when we're talking about Gossip Girl? Because the slays truly go all day. And when Alexis and I, like on the last team call, when we decided we were doing Gossip Girl, we were picking out the episodes, and Alexis wanted to do this episode because of the Georgina plot. It was like, I have never seen a vision in my life so clearly of forcing Marissa to watch Georgina church camp arc with no context. It was like, Alexis, we've never had a more brilliant
thought.
thought.
And
I
all
loved
I
it.
said was the one where Georgina, period. And Liz was like,
Like-
I've got it. Like,
Yeah.
So my rapid fire slay is this entire mission of making Marissa watch that specific moment was so genius on Alexis's part. We didn't even get to ask you, Marissa, what your reaction was when you
loved
saw
it.
that. Loved it?
I loved it. I was obsessed with it. I could not have given less of a shit about that man and his con and his money and that other woman that was obviously conning him. Like, I could not have cared at
Army
all.
Hammer is who you're talking about. Army Hammer in that episode.
I don't
No.
know. This one, a
Mhm.
queen.
Yeah.
That's what I was here for.
Yeah. Such a slay. And my other rapid fire slay is the fact that they got Blake Lively to pull off orange, because I think that that's probably not a color that works on her all the time. But this,
Yeah.
like the way they frame her in the trees and the way that they dress her in orange to like be the opposite of like the environment, and nobody else is dressed in orange at this polo match. And then she takes Carter Mason behind a tree and he's left to find his shoes with the horses. Like, the whole polo match is a slay for me. Marissa, do you have any slays you would like to shout out?
Oh, I actually never wrote the word slay in my notes, but I will say, Taylor Momsen, Jenny distracting Lily by explaining the plot of Twilight was thrilling to me. I loved that. That was a slay. A lot of my notes are about who Gossip Girl is and how I just don't believe that. But that's not really a slay. That's just me complaining. We can talk about that off air.
Love. Sly, do you have any slays you want to shout out?
I want Alexis to go first, because then I'm just going to read you a list of things that were said out loud while we were watching. So, Alexis, if you want to get any of them out of the way first, go for it.
I don't. I will leave that up to you. But I will say that for me, the Georgina episode is also a major slay. It is funny, but there is some really interesting like character commentary in that episode, especially like Chuck and Nate and like discussing Blair, which I think is really fun. But my slay would really be if the fanfics that came out of that episode. Because somehow Blair convinces Arthur, who is played by many different actors, but is always named Arthur, to go away with the limo, even though he is Chuck's hired driver. Like the conspiracy theories that came out about that will forever be a slay.
It's one of the biggest plot holes in the entire show. And that's really
so
saying
funny.
something.
But then where does the taxi come from?
Correct.
Like they're far upstate.
All right, Sly, take us home with a list of things that were
All
said.
These are all from the Thanksgiving episode. We love a West Wing crossover. I can't decide if I like Serena's outfit or if I hate everything about it. It looks like it has a bunch of dead oysters, and that makes me sad. So much fucking kissing, parentheses. Alexis told me I had to put that in my notes. How do we feel about those suspenders? We hate them. Thank you. Dun dun dun, with Jason Derulo setting the mood. Doctor Who Gossip Girl canon confirmed ? Cardigans looks cozy yet 500 years old at the same time. That's an interesting interpretation of how the Soviet Union collapsed and taken us home. Congressman Bestie is giving Hogwarts, should be punched in the face, and vampire vibes, not politician vibes.
Very quickly on that last note, I had the same thought, but instead of, can you read that one more time?
Congressman Bestie is giving Hogwarts, should be punched in the face, and vampire vibes, not politician vibes.
Yeah, it's Draco Malfoy energy.
It is. I wanted to add, though, that my conclusion from that exact moment was that he should take over for the guy that plays Dan in the show You. Aaron Tveit, Dan in Gossip Girl, is the lead in the show You on Netflix. You know,
Joe.
He plays Joe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You called Joe Dan.
Oh my God, sorry.
Dan Humphries is not Joe.
I've got Taylor Swift worms for brains. What I'm trying to say is that Aaron Tveit needs to go do that show based on his performance as the politician in Gossip Girl, because I would believe him as that character more than Joe.
And Badgley.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Such a vampire face, though. Like, I was like, you look like a vampire from Twilight.
Yeah.
In this show. Like,
he looks like a baby, but also a vampire.
Yeah.
Like, it was like the youngest he'd ever looked, but also a congressman.
We also
was not there
had
for
similar
that.
feelings about Sebastian Stan, how he looked very young, yet had the Winter Soldier bags under the eyes going on.
This is bringing up a really interesting point for me, which is that the premiere of New Moon would have been during peak Gossip Girl, and I don't buy for a second that these characters would not have been there. For a second, I don't believe that Blair Waldorf does not have a ticket to the premiere of New Moon. You're in high school.
Walks the carpet.
You're in high school in 2009, and you're as rich as Blair Waldorf, and you don't have a ticket to the New Moon premiere. I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a goddamn second. You don't think Chuck Bass found a way to sponsor the after party or something just so that Blair could see Taylor Lautner in person?
Strong point.
Where's the fanfic?
Strong point.
this is us asking for the fanfic.
Please see us in the DMs after tonight's episode.
DMs. We'd love to see it.
In fact, I'm going to go on the wiki and complain that they did not read that. Okay, that's enough on that. That's our show for this week. Let's sign off. I'm going to toss it to Sly first to sign off tonight. I think you have something under the radar that you would like to plug for the viewers to maybe check out.
Oh, yeah, sure, I guess. Rolling with Difficulty, of course, the actual play podcast that JJ recommended to me just wrapped season 3, so it's the perfect time to go through and binge the show if you want to catch up before season 4. Definitely check the content warnings on all of them. But yeah, that's fun. Sorry, we're doing outros now. You can find me everywhere on the internet. It's like Lena MC. You can find me on Thursdays live on TikTok talking about all things 911 and 911 Lone Star. You can find me Friday nights on the Point in Progress YouTube channel talking to all things gaming, what we're enjoying, all that jazz. You can find me here, and you can find me on MC University, also hosted through Pip, every other Wednesday. And that's my journey through the non-MCU Marvel movies.
Well said. Well done, Sly. Sly does the most shows out of anyone here, and they are all fantastic and worth watching and worth checking out. I'm producer Liz everywhere. I am working behind the scenes on some cool content for y'all that will be coming out over the next few weeks. And in the meantime, I've got to record some videos and talk about the Oscars with y'all. Follow me on Instagram. My stories get all the updates first. And that's what's going on with me. Marissa?
You can find me everywhere on the internet at Miss Abobissa on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, and Tumblr, but mostly TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. And I will be talking about, screaming about, making memes about all the latest in pop culture, keeping my eyes specifically on the Wicked movie. If you ever need anyone to give you news about the Wicked movie, I no doubt will have it first because I'm crazy. And I'll be, yelling about all of those things that I included in my rant because those are all things on my radar that I'm excited about coming soon. Yeah, that's me. Follow me for memes.
It's true, Marissa, the meme queen. And Alexis, what are you up to? What do you want the people to know?
I actually realized that one of the things that I watched this week that I forgot that I watched was Farmer Wants a Wife, which is a disaster of a show. But I will be watching it and maybe providing commentary. So if you are watching the show and also finding it to be ridiculous, you can come and talk to me about it. I am at Just Alexis Blake on Instagram and TikTok, and I usually talk about, I made the account so that I could talk about grad school and now just talk about 911. But you can follow me there to hear about my life and just to come hang out and chat.
I will say I also forgot that the highlight of my week was getting Alexis's commentary about that show while I was watching The Bachelor. And she did almost successfully convince me to abandon The Bachelor for Farmer Meets Wife. Is that what it is?
Farmer Wants a Wife, I think.
Farmer Wants a Wife? What is it?
Something like that.
Something about a farmer looking for a wife, which sounded much more interesting than the Bachelor episode that aired this week. So Alexis is doing commentary. It is worth hearing. I was cracking up at the text alone. And with that is our after party for this week. Besties, did we forget? I'm going through the show doc. Anything else we want to throw in there before we go?
I think we did it.
Okay, then I have to do probably the cringiest outro that we will ever do on this show. Are we ready?
Oh.
Here we go.
XOXO.